Now, the last little while, we've been working in our series called The Feelings of the Season. And for those who are joining us, what we look at is we've been looking at feelings that often arise leading up into the Christmas season. So with us, we've looked at loneliness and how often we can feel alone. Our society is more connected than ever, but we can feel more isolated than ever as well. Last week, we looked at the important topic of anxiety, on how everything that we got around us can make us so anxious. Now, ultimately, we're not just looking at these, we're looking at how we find our answer in Christ, but there's a bigger theme in there, and that is the shepherds. And for the month of November until Advent, we're really focusing on David, who was a shepherd, and the Psalms that he wrote. And as we come into Advent, we're going to shift to look at the shepherds in their fields, and we're going to unpack from there. Finally, as we get closer to Christmas, we will unpack the great shepherd and all that he brings. Now this morning, we're going to be looking, should be no secret, you can see it on the screen, stress. Stress. Now, you might not think that that's a topic that often gets talked about, especially in the scriptures. But there is, and I think there's no better place to look at it than King David. Oftentimes we do, and I think it's one of the shames that we can run into in the scriptures, is that we read about the people. Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon. And we seem to forget these are real people. That they had real struggles. They had real emotions. They felt the weights. Now David is unique from the others a little bit, only because we get so much of his life. You get Abraham, but you kind of get snapshots of Abraham. You get when he was called. Then the next time you get when he went to Egypt. And then you get when he went to Abimelech. And then you get when God talked to him about his promise, the birth of Ishmael and Isaac. And then it jumps quite a bit. Even Jacob, you kind of get snapshots here and there. But David, we almost get his life from the calling of David to his death. You get his home struggles, you get his personal struggles, and you get even more when it comes with the Psalms. You get how David felt during times. And so we saw that there were times already that David's felt lonely, that he's felt anxious, and today we're going to look at stress. But before we do, I'd like to define what is stress. What is stress? Well, stress is different than anxiety. Because when you think, it's like, isn't stress and anxiety very similar? They have similar aspects, but they're a little bit different. Stress comes from without. Anxiety comes from within. For the most part. Now, they both can be triggered by something that's out, but stress generally comes from within. Now, stress, if you're feeling stressed, generally you're going to feel like you're pulled in many directions. Now, this can happen. Now, I think particularly at Christmas, coming into the Christmas season, you've got stress. You usually have financial stress, celebration stress, family stress, preparation stress. You're pulled in so many directions, and you can often feel overwhelmed by responsibilities, crushed by demands, let down by others. Now, stress, it really does feel like you're being squeezed, you're being pressed. You're being crushed. In fact, that's the reason the word stress was used to describe this feeling. Stress itself, the original meaning of it, when you broke it down, it comes to mean feeling squeezed, narrowed, constantly under pressure. Is what it means. You think the term stress test. When you stress test something, you want to see technically how much it can bear before it breaks. This is why you've got bridges when you go across them. They'll tell you how much tonnage you can have. This is why elevators, when you walk in, they're right on the front of it. It says how many occupants, how much weight. That's a stress limit. And we have it too. And we can feel it. But when stress affects us, it's a little different than when you overload an elevator. When you overload an elevator, you get in, it starts to sway. You hear like the creaking of the cables. And then you immediately get out because no way you're going to stay in an elevator like that. But you hear these kind of things. But people, there's a little bit different. We can have different effects. We get some small effects. When you're constantly stressed, you can feel tension. You feel tight. And usually this is why we're like, I want to hit a hot tub or a hot shower. Or get a massage. Something to loosen our muscles. You become irritable. Short-tempered. It happens. You can have trouble focusing or making decisions. Sleep disturbances on minor. Or constantly feeling rushed or overwhelmed and may have slight forgetfulness. These are feelings of stress. These are the minor ones. Let's go a step further. If you're continually under stress, you can have chronic fatigue, burnout, can lead to anxiety or depression. Then you get the physiological. You get high blood pressure, heart strain, weakened immune system, respiratory strain, conflicted feeling spiritually empty, distant, and things like memory loss get greater. Confusion continues to grow. And at one point or another, we can feel all these. You go, some of those sound like anxiety. Yes, but here's a big difference. When it comes to stress, if you remove the stressor, things improve. With anxiety, they tend not to. And I can tell you, these effects of stress are very real. I can tell you in my own life, I have felt them. There was a time, I've shared this with some, in the past, under a great load of stress for an extended period of time, there were things that I did completely wrong. There was once, I was in town on Priestman Street, and I was coming out of visiting a specialist, and I was waiting for an opening in traffic, and then I looked and said, hey, look, there's 2 lanes that are completely empty. And so I turned, I took the left on the turn, and it took about good 5 seconds for me to realize why those lanes were empty. That was oncoming traffic. I quickly got out. I had another time, I was just at the bank machine. I had put my card in, and then for some reason I stood there for a second and started to panic. I couldn't find my card. I'm going, where's my card? I can't find it. Where did I put my card? And I start searching my wallet. Did I leave it in the card? Did I drop it somewhere? Took it a little bit, and then eventually I remembered I had just put it in the machine. Now I got nervous about that, and I had friends coming up from PEI, and he and I went out to dinner. Oh no, we were picking up Chinese food for our wives is what we were doing. And we were waiting in the restaurant, and we sat down and we were talking. Coincidentally, he was going through the exact same thing. Not for the same reasons. He was a farmer, and if it's PEI, it's not hard to guess what kind of farmer. And if you can remember back then, this will give you a time frame, that there was a time when somebody was sabotaging PEI potatoes, putting needles in them. And that's what they were dealing with. Having to recall, track everything, the strain. And he said he was doing this, he had the same things. He was starting to panic when he shouldn't, forgetting things, making bad mistakes. And the thing was, we both agreed, we didn't want to tell our wives. We don't want them to worry. This is stress. And I think this is a case that as society's gone on, we're getting these pressures, and when the Christmas season comes, I think it gets greater because we have an expectation. You start seeing things. Think about it. The one thing that people start to look at when Christmas comes, not for me, but the Hallmark movies. Start stressing it. Being together. Think about it. One of the best Christmas movies ever, Home Alone. What's the whole point of the movie? Family together. And you're like, well, maybe my family's not going to be together. And the stress is there. And so it's important to look at. Now, King David felt stress. And I'll tell you where we're going to go. We're going to go to Psalm 62. You can turn there. Now, this is a case, we don't know the background of this psalm, Psalm 62. But it's believed that it could be when David was on the run from Absalom. And he's feeling the effects of the running. Now, we don't get it all, but you got to remember this all would have come about because of David's own actions earlier. It's the consequence of that. He's got enemies that are chasing him. He's got people that are yelling at him. He's got people that he's leading. he'd be under stress. Now, Psalm 62's got this symmetry to it, where David points out what he's supposed to do, where his strength is, what his problem is, where his strength is, where his problem is, where his strength is. We're going to unpack that. But let's go to Psalm 62. We're going to read the whole psalm this morning. He says, "Truly my soul silently waits for God. From him comes my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. How long will you attack a man? You shall be slain, all of you, like a leaning wall and a tottering fence. They only consult to cast him down from his high position. They delight in lies. They bless with their mouth, but they curse inwardly." Selah. My soul waits silently for God alone, for my expectation is from him. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved. In God is my salvation and my glory, the rock of my strength, and my refuge is in God. Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. Selah. Surely men of low degree are a vapor. Men of high degree are a lie. If they are weighed on the scales, they are altogether lighter than vapor. Do not trust in oppression, nor vainly hope in robbery. If riches increase, do not set your heart on them. God has spoken once, twice I have heard this, that power belongs to God. Also to you, O Lord, belongs mercy, for you render to each one according to his work. And we'll stop there at the end of the psalm. As I said, we're not exactly sure when David wrote this, but it was a time during stress. And it's interesting because when you look at this psalm, remember the psalms were written for worship. And yet this song seems neither instruction nor distinctly prayer, but rather it goes kind of between both. And so he goes and he starts, well, he's under this stress that he does what is right, and he stops looking at his stressors. He stops looking at it, because if he did, he would have a very different look. I'm just going to borrow here for a sec from Psalm 69. It's on the screen. And I think this is a good way to describe how we feel when we have all this pressure on us. Look what he says. "Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in deep mire. Where there is no standing, I have come into deep waters, where floods overflow me." I think that's a good description of what it feels like to have the stress. That we're sinking. We're not able to get ahead. That the pressure is there. And it can come from anywhere. It can come from where we find ourselves for employment. It can come for us in our home life, our finances, our health. One of the interesting ones that is a stressor is Mary and Martha. Think about it. She knew Jesus was coming. Mary knew Jesus was coming. Martha, being the good hostess she is, starts to cook the food. And you got to remember, when Jesus showed up, it's not just him and a couple of buddies. It's him and his whole entourage is coming. So is it any wonder then that she's starting to feel overwhelmed? Completely overwhelmed. Why? We don't know why. Just the food's not coming as quick. I don't know if she's feeling the time constraint. I don't know. Maybe she burned something. We don't know. It can happen so easy. And she's feeling it, and she's feeling stressed. She probably feels like she's in it. What is she now going to do? And all she does is, Jesus, tell Mary to help me. Now in that case, Jesus could have gone, okay, Mary, you go in the stressor too. No, he just says, Martha, Change your focus. What you're doing, yeah, that's important. But it's not what's best. I think a lot of times when we're facing stress, that's where it is. We've got our eyes so fixated on the stressors. I'm sure coming up soon, we're going to start asking, are you ready for Christmas yet? It's funny, I was at the store the other day. I think this one was Costco. I made 3 stops doing groceries yesterday. I think it was Costco, and I just overheard. Nope, it was Walmart. I was going into Walmart, just entering in, and I overheard a man and wife talking to another person, talking about how that day, yesterday, they were going to do all their Christmas shopping. Because it was the only time they would have had together to go do it. I don't know about you, but I haven't even started any of that. But that's a stressor. We start going, are you ready yet? Have you got your decorations up? Have you got the tree up yet? You got your food prepared? You got the menu prepared? Have you got the gifts done? Do you know what you're getting each person? Do you know where to get each person? I think even the way I'm starting to say it with a fast pace is starting to make us go, wait a minute, that's starting to feel heavy. And that's on top of everything else. How many people start to panic as soon as the snow starts to come? It's like, do I have the tires on yet? Does everybody else got the tires on yet? My wife told me, it's not that her driving, it's everybody else driving that gets her nervous in the winter. And that's a stressor. And as it approaches, it feels that way, and we're looking at all of this that we have to get done. We have a schedule. We've got time frames. And all that weight is there. And when David is in the midst of this and he's writing a psalm about this, his starting of this is stop and reflect on God. Look what he says. The opening of that psalm, Psalm 62. Truly my soul silently waits for God. Isn't it interesting? When the Israelites were fleeing from Egypt, they reached the Red Sea. The Egyptian army is coming. What does Moses tell them to do? Sit down and wait. God will work. Stop and change your focus. It's interesting. In Hebrews, it tells us to fix our eyes on Jesus. And I think the English is kind of loses the nuance just a little bit. But it's really, that idea of fixing it, it's stop getting distracted. Stop looking around. Because if we keep looking around and we're facing all these stressors, we're going to end up just like Peter. If you're wondering, well, okay, what am I referring to? Because that can happen. Just put what Psalm 69 and Peter together, what the two have in common. Psalm 69, the waters have come up to my neck, I sink. Peter was walking to Jesus on the water. Kept his eyes on Jesus, he was fine. What'd he do? Looked around. Soon as he looked around, what happened? Starts to sink. Look, we're not going to be able to stop the stress that's around our life. It's always there. Bills, health issues, the outside stresses. I'm not talking about the inside ones. The inside ones we talked about last week, how to handle. But how do we feel this pressure that is pushing on us, that wants to crush us? How can we do it? And David first starts like, look, I'm going to wait for God. You go, why? Because when we're in the middle of this, and we're in the middle of stress, I think there's one thing we want more than anything. It's the same thing Martha wanted. Somebody help me. If we're putting up the Christmas decorations, it's not going right. The lights are all tangled. It's getting frustrated. What do? Somebody come help me. And particularly if we're married, we're like, why aren't they helping? They can carry boxes in. They can carry them down. They can untangle lights. They can put some up. And we're looking for others for the salvation. To relieve the stress. And David says, no. From him comes my salvation. He is my rock and my salvation. He only is. This is where we have to start. We got to stop looking at what is around us and turn to Him. But truthfully, we're no different than a cat trying to chase a laser. We see it, we turn to it, we look at it, we stare at it. It's natural. That's why it's better not just fix, it's divert your eyes to Jesus. And we need to start there. Now David goes on and he talks about his enemies a bit. We're going to jump that in this case. He's being very specific, but it's a way to handle it. To specifically go, just like we did anxiety, don't hide it, admit it. Pour them out before God, but remember that God is the refuge. I always think one of the problems that we run into, and this is the same thing we ran into with anxiety, is we look towards modern culture's ways of handling these situations. We really do. When it comes to stressors, unfortunately, from observation, being generality here, many people do not do good with pressure. They don't do good under stress. In other words, we've lost our resilience a little bit. And the generation coming up has lost it even more. This is why when they go through a system that doesn't allow them to fail, they enter the workforce and things get rough. I've read plenty of articles that have covered this. Like, why is Gen Z so quick to get hired and fired? Why is Gen Z not working as hard? Not all of them, but some of them. It's why all of a sudden now mental health is important, but they take mental health days for everything. My car wouldn't start, I need a mental health day. My toast was burnt, I can't come in, I can't focus. They got my order wrong in my triple latte, cappuccino, caramel cappuccino, whatever you order, with soy milk at Starbucks. Keep in mind, those are stressors. It is disappointing. I know that. I've gotten home and I've ordered things and got it back. I think the other day, my wife and I, we finally got out for a couple hours by ourselves. We went to McDonald's. Not our choice, but it wasn't much open by that time. She ordered a Sprite, a filet of fish, French fries. I ordered a sweet chili grilled chicken wrap. That's what I ordered. We get home, we realize her Sprite is now a Coke. My sweet chili wrap is now a chicken bacon wrap. I remember when they messed up the order pretty good. They got the filet of fish right and they got her fries right. 4 items, they were shooting 50%. Now you can go, it's like, that's going to bring me down. Am I going to crash? Am I going to complain? Am I going to go back? No. She drank the Coke, I ate the wrap. But you're going, it doesn't taste as good. Because it's not really what I wanted. So it can be a stressor. But how do you handle it? And here's the thing. We try to handle it the world's way. Take deep breaths. Realize it's not that big of a deal. Or just get rid of the stressor. That's a pretty common one. Cut it off. Get rid of it. Because face it, in life, here's a reality. There's no bigger stressor than family. It's just the way it is. I'm not saying my kids stress me out. Okay, I'm saying it. There are times my wife gets home from work and she's like, go out, go to the gym, work it off, and I take it. It happens. But you don't cut them off. What do? You refocus and look at what David writes. Trust in Him at all times, you people. He actually says this 3 times throughout the psalm. Trusting God, trusting God, trusting God. Why? Because we need it. We're too often to right. Trust in Him at all times, you people. Pour out your heart before Him. He is our refuge for us. He's the one who rescues. We're not talking about the stressors going, but you relax and He's the refuge which you run to recharge, to restrain. This is why it's so important, I think, that, and people misunderstand it, to gather together at least once a week with local people in the presence of God to recharge. To just feel the ability to talk with one another, to come before Him and just be fed. And if you come and you join us on a Sunday morning, I'm hoping you're doing your own study on the side throughout the week, but you can come on a Sunday morning and just hear the Word proclaimed to you, that you may be strengthened in it. That when you go back into the stressors, you're not just renewed, you're not stressed out from the vacation, but you're strengthened from the vacation. Isn't that always the way that they have it too? You're stressed out from everything, go on vacation. Vacation stresses me out more than staying home. That's me personally. I've also learned that if I go on vacation, something happens. Wondering why I haven't taken a vacation, a real vacation, in years? Just look at my last couple of years when I've tried. I booked one vacation, cottage away with the family, hurricane hits. I wasn't the only one that affected. The other ones who had vacation planned that same year, they got hit by a second hurricane where they were going. The next year, I had time for just me and my wife, a nice bed and breakfast so we could go overnight, have a nice time. Well breaks. Every time I try to go, something happens. Then when something does and I go and stay with friends, it pulls a Murray. You get there and it's not really vacation. What is it? It's repairs. Like, hey, do you know how to do this? Do you know how to fix this? Turns out I went to visit my friends one time. It was all to help them get their house ready to put it on the market. Replacing all the screen windows, replacing countertops, putting in a new stove. That was vacation. It wasn't bad, but you know what I mean. They still gave us like a date night. We went out, they watched the kids, we went out. But the object is like, just get away for a little bit. Go to the cottage, then come back. That can help for a moment. But it's not permanent. Here's the thing. You can't continually run to the cottage. You can't continue to run on vacations. But you can continue to run to God. He's always there. He doesn't move. And this is why it says, trust in Him in all times. Now, one of the things that God has given us as the church is one another. Galatians chapter 6, Paul writes to the church at Galatia, he gives them the command to bear one another's burdens. Help uplift one another. And we're supposed to do that. We are. We're supposed to do that, not to the extent where we rely on them to do everything. That same passage, 3 verses down, verse 5. So verse 2 is bear one another's burdens. Verse 5, let each man carry his own load. In other words, you don't do nothing. We're meant to work together to strengthen one another. We're all carrying a load. And you help those who are struggling. And I'd like to say that we are perfect at this, but we're not. And David writes this. It's like people are unreliable. Now notice he came in, God is a refuge. Rely on Him at all times. He is your constant refuge. He's always there for you. And then he turns right in and look what he says. And surely men of low degree are a vapor. Men of high degree are a lie. See, it doesn't matter. He's like, people are people. And when we expect people to be there, there's going to be times when we're going, I need help, and everybody is gone. They just leave. It happens. I can think of times in my life where that has happened. Where people come, they enjoy, and then they just depart. I remember this one particular Easter. So when my oldest was still an infant. Now he's a great sleeper now. Goes to bed on time, wakes up 6 o'clock. Like clockwork. But then, no. He slept so bad that my wife and I slept in shifts. And I mean it. I was up until about 3 in the morning every night with him, 3:30. And then we'd switch. He'd take over from 3:30 until like 9 or 10 in the morning. We'd shift back and forth until he'd finally sleep. This particular Easter, I remember, we had a sunrise breakfast. So I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was at the church helping out. We were cooking, made breakfast. Family was up to visit. Breakfast went all right. 2 of the people who were staying with us, they came into the breakfast, and I was like, what is wrong with them? They were completely disheveled, hair a mess, clothes untucked, everything. Then between the breakfast and the service, they actually went back to the house and got cleaned up, came to the service. Afterwards, my wife and I were planning a nice meal. A couple decided, no, we've got to leave. And they left. Like shortly after the service. They had other things they needed to do. Meanwhile, our son has been crying and crying the whole time. And the only thing we could do is we left the food half cooked on the stove. We got in the car and we just drove until he finally fell asleep. We had Easter dinner at A&W in the parking lot. It happens. And we're like, they just abandoned us. They left us. You'd think if anyone was going to help, it'd be the family. No, God. I tell you that as an illustration, not to make people feel bad or badmouth my family. I love my family. But it just shows that we can do it. And I'm sure there are times that I've been just as bad. Where they were expecting something and something else come up and I couldn't be there. And it's a reminder that people, even as well-meaning and loving as we are to each other, we can be a little unreliable. Martha was like, Mary, where's Mary? Why is my sister not helping me? She should be helping me do all this. Not around. David, when he wanted help, sometimes he'd turn and the people would be gone. We can run there. And he gives us this reminder. He's like, look, God is the refuge, but surely it's like men of low degree, men of high degree. They're a vapor. They're a lie. If you put them on a scale, they're lighter than vapor. I don't even know how you would put vapor on a scale. But it means that's people. And so when it comes to handling stress in our life, yes, sometimes people will be there to help one another as we should. But there's times we're going to miss it. But our focus should never be in the confidence of people solely. If we do, yes, there's sometimes they'll be there, sometimes they'll not. We'll be disappointed. Our confidence, as David brings it right back, is always in God. And notice where he puts it. Not just in a concept of God. Not in just coming to God. But he puts it in the promises of God. Look what he says. God has spoken once. Twice I have heard this. That's a poetic way of speaking. It's like more than once is God reminding me of this. That power belongs to God. Alas, to you, O Lord, belongs mercy. In other words, it is God who we need to trust. I'd like to say that we're good at this, but I think too often we have been affected by our own culture more than we think. We don't realize how much it can seep in to us. And then when the stresses arise, what do? We put confidence either in ourselves and we put confidence in the helpers around us. We're like, well, I can get people to help me. And yet, we can fail. Our strength can give out. The longer we're under stress, the more we feel those effects. And I hope you never get to the point that I was, where we're getting things confused. But we can get there. Others around us can get busy. But there's one whose promises are true and can never be broken. And yes, he says, I don't just speak once, I speak more than times and over and over and over again. He says, I remind you of my promises, that I am your refuge. I am your strong tower. I'm your rest. I'm the one that you should come to. When the enemies rise around you, is what David said, the Lord is my strong tower. The righteous run into it and are safe. When the stresses arise around us and seek to consume us, and we're sinking up to our neck, may we, if we're forgetting the words of David, may we remember the words of Peter. Lord, save me. Now, he didn't immediately put Peter back in the boat. You ever think about that? He didn't put Peter back in the boat. What did he do? He picked him up, held him. And guess what they then had to do? Walk back across the water. The same water that made Peter afraid. Through the same wind that made Peter scared. The same waves were still there. But walking with Jesus, there was no other problem. He trusted. May our confidence be in Christ alone. So as this season goes on, and as winter comes, there's going to be stressors. Some will come, some will go. Stressors usually fade away. But may our eyes not be focused on this outward stress around us. Not worried about Christmas shopping, not worried about bills, not worried about the lights, the decorations. May we be focused, where David tells us to, on the manger. What was the point of the manger? He shall be called Emmanuel. God is with us. He's told you once. He's told you twice. I am with you. Always. I am your salvation. I am your refuge. All who trust in me will never be put to shame. Trust in him and him alone. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you that you do call us to yourself. And Father, that you do understand that we live a life with outside influences and pressures upon us. Things that cause us to turn and look at them, the stress that is placed on us. And Father, there are times under that pressure that we can feel like we're almost drowning. And Lord, I pray that we would turn to you, that we would know that you are the firm foundation, that you are the solid rock, the tower. And Lord, I do pray for any who are under such a load today. Father, first I pray for them that their eyes will be diverted to you, that their strength would be found in you, that they would reflect in you. And Father, I pray that you would open their eyes of the community towards them, that we would see them and come alongside and bear one another's burdens. And Lord, I pray that we would know that our trust is in you. And if needed, O Lord, speak once, speak twice, speak as often as we need, that you may remind us that we're in you. And so, Father, I thank you and I praise you and give you the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.